Good evening, everyone. This is the Finance and Administration Committee meeting for Thursday, October 17th, 2024. We're calling this meeting to order. My name is Jim Spear. I am the chair. Michael Salmonson is the vice chair. Michael Gardini is also a member of this committee. And we have Matt West with us, who's the borough manager, Alan Gazzardo, who is the assistant borough manager, and that's everyone who's here. So, now, first on the agenda is approval of minutes for August and September. Can we do these as one motion? Because they both look good to me.
Okay, I will move to approve the minutes of the F&A committee for August 15th, 2024 and September 19th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, accepting the minutes? The minutes are accepted, thank you. Treasurer's report, Mr. West.
Thank you. The review, the budget versus actual report was included in the meeting packet for tonight. Be happy to answer any questions from the committee. There wasn't anything
I don't see anything.
out of the ordinary.
You don't think so? Any questions?
Nope.
No questions?
No.
Okay, very good. Audit update.
So I circulated to council and the mayor this afternoon a copy of the final audit for 2023. I'm happy to report that it is done. It was a slog just due to all of the staff turnover in 2023. It just took some extra time for the auditor to complete it. Many of the questions and details that they needed to complete the audit were difficult to answer because none of the staff who were here today were there for most of 2023. Also included in the audit were 3 findings. Given the uncertainty of the staff turnover in 2023, it just highlights that because we had so few staff that our checks and balances were not in a good position, for which we've already accounted for. And I just want to assure this committee that there was no evidence of any fraud that was discovered.
That's good to hear.
Yep.
Everything's accounted for.
Yes.
Are we going to, is the auditor going to come in at some point?
So I have I emailed her today to see if she could hit one of our next meetings in November. I have not heard back from her yet, so it might be a Zoom meeting. She might zoom in either the workshop or the business meeting to give us a 10-15 minute review of the audit.
Okay.
I think I'll save my questions for her then.
Is this something we were ultimately going to need to vote to accept the audit, or?
Nope.
No, okay, it just happens.
Yeah, it just happens. Yep.
All right, very good. Schedule of bills. Anybody have questions on schedule of bills?
Sure, I didn't see anything unusual in there either, right?
Nothing unusual.
Anything to point out?
No.
I did have a question, just curiosity. Maybe this was from an earlier month, but I noticed there was a budgeted amount for spring cleanup for the waste manager, and they didn't charge us anything?
They have not yet.
Oh, they're still coming?
I have emailed them I think it was last month, and it had slipped their billing department, and so they are in the process of billing us.
All right.
Yes, that will be forthcoming
Okay.
before the
cool.
end of the year.
Good
All right.
catch, Jim. Thanks for making sure that we spend
We
all
pay
our
for
money.
our spring cleanup? Yes.
You'll also see in this schedule of bills is our significant debt payments.
Are those showing up for the first time?
Yeah,
Which
second
page is
time.
that?
That'll be on page 2 of the schedule of bills, First National Bank of Newtown. That is both principal and interest
Ah.
for 3 of our general obligation notes.
All right. See. All right.
And those were all budgeted.
Anyone else? Anything? Okay. Moving move on from that.
We need a motion to
Oh, yeah.
recommend that it goes to council.
Motion, please.
Sure, I will move to recommend to council that they approve the schedule of bills for the general sewer, solid waste, capital, highway aid, and green funds totaling $251,088.88.
Seconded.
All in favor? That is approved. Thank you. All right, budget amendment number 3.
Here we go. I've got some good news to share with the committee. I included a pretty detailed memo in tonight's meeting packet outlining this projected significant surplus projected for the end of the year. Mainly because we're looking at 2 factors. One, our EIT is trending higher than budgeted. We didn't really know I didn't know what to budget for 2024 because the EIT was enacted in early 2023. So we don't have any good long-term data to help us get really good budget projections, and so we used bumped up a little bit from what the projection that was provided to us by the tax collector agency, but it's actually coming in significantly higher than our budgeted amount. And this is there was a couple of reasons. First of all, incomes are trending higher. We're getting better long-term data, and there was since it's a new tax that was enacted, there's some catch-up payments that have been coming into Berkheimer in the early part of the year. So it's not going to be indicative of what we can expect in 2025. So they were just like, look, just be careful. We've got some extra payments that came in 2024. Since this was a newer tax, things are getting ironed out. So those the 2025 projections are also included in the draft budget that was circulated to council earlier this afternoon also. So we are expecting about $231,000 more in earned income tax than what was budgeted. And if you also remember, the 2024 budget includes a general fund reserve line item of just under $100,000. So the budget to balance it, per Commonwealth law, every municipal budget has to be balanced. To balance our budget for 2024, we propose using $98,466,000 of general fund reserves. Budget amendment number 3 reduces that to 0. And then on the expense side, we have a couple of projects that came up. One, namely the diesel tank that leaked in the Public Works garage. We're proposing that get removed as well as the 2 pumps that are connected to it. And we pay for a more mobile fuel system, one that is installed on a Public Works vehicle. It's a 60-gallon tank that will enable us to go down to the fuel depot, Lower Merion's fuel depot, and then be able to fill up both our street sweeper and skid steer. We also are expecting, in coordination with the fire department, that part 2 would be to purchase a fuel cube that could be transportable to support fire department operations. That's part 2. I'm going to recommend that we should budget for both parts, which is also included in this budget amendment number 3. You'll see I've split it between 2 different expense line items: vehicle fuel and equipment maintenance for Public Works. Just split the costs. What Jeff Eldon and I are wanting to do is we want to go through with phase 1. That is the back of the pickup truck system, and see how it works. We think that we might be able to actually support the fire department even with that, and we might not need to actually go through with part 2.
Wow, okay.
So we want to give a couple of months to see how that works, to see any kinks that need to be ironed out before we go and just purchase that fuel cube. Also included in this budget amendment is an increase in traffic control devices and street signs. If you remember earlier in the year, the end of 2023, council passed an update to the residential parking system. That meant a lot of signs to be deployed, and those were not budgeted for. And so this would help us absorb those costs, as well as the additional cost to purchase the mainline greenway signs. We're looking to make those purchases by the end of this year. So this is a one-time proposed bump up from $6,000 up to $18,500 just for one time. We're not expecting that $18,000 line item will carry over to 2025, that it'll go back down to $6,000. The last thing is that if you remember at the last council meeting, I recommended that we not move forward with the general obligation note that was taken out to help us pay for any expected upgrades, any emergencies arising from Chula and Sabine. That full amount was budgeted for in 2024. I recommended that we not move forward with it in coordination with our bond counsel and our financial experts. So that's actually going to also free up just under $200,000 by not moving forward with that debt. We've paid off that note. It was about $28,000 that we needed to pay. That was paid for last month. That includes closing costs and all of those things that were added into that. So we are zeroed out. The net result is a recommended transfer to the capital fund, because I think just about every time I talk about the budget, I remind council that, remember, we did not include any transfer to the capital fund. This is our opportunity. So here we have a projected surplus. My recommendation is that council approve this update and transfer that $300,000 into the capital fund. You'll hear me once I give my budget presentation for 2025. I'm also going to recommend the same methodology for 2025. 2025 draft budget does not include a line item for a transfer to the capital fund. And I'm encouraging council to please pass it as is, and then this time next year, see where the EIT is tracking, and any surplus that's expected, use that surplus to then, that's your transfer into your capital fund. Because I just don't have enough long-term data with the EIT to know, okay, I feel comfortable bumping it up to here, we can budget for this transfer. So it's a good intermediary step. Next couple of years, you'll be able to track that better, and that line item can be a known entity.
So you said maintaining the current expectations for EIT and then transferring surplus
Yes.
capital.
Because
Make sure I capture that.
Yep.
If there is one next year.
Right, but just the idea being that we don't have enough long-term data to revise our priors regarding how much we would be taking for EIT.
The estimates that we get, you'll hear this in my budget presentation too, the estimates that we get from Berkheimer tend to be on the conservative side, because they even say, look, we don't have enough long-term data. We think it's going to be here. It's probably going to be more, but this is what we're comfortable publishing to you. It's going to be higher. I can guarantee it's going to be higher. And I like to budget a low EIT just to be able to have this ability to then have a surplus at the end of the year, because you don't know what's going to be coming up.
Right.
Is the differential downward that they put on 2025, I'm looking at the letter from Karen.
Yes.
To you, is that all, does that fully encompass just that delayed payment from 2023 to 2024?
Yes.
So if in fact she's not taking into consideration, for example, if the apartments start to get filled and
Right.
people...
This is only our known
Right, so
employees,
this is
right.
only just assuming we're not gonna have that
Yes.
carryover without an increase in population, an increase in... Okay.
Which is why I'm pretty
Yeah.
confident in saying
Yeah,
it's going to be higher.
and there's gonna be inflation, I mean, people's salaries go
Yes.
up,
Yes.
hopefully 4%,
Yes.
a year or so. Okay.
I'm curious so absent a surplus and a transfer to a capital fund, like if we had not had this opportunity to make a transfer to the capital fund, how would we have budgeted for capital plan expenditure for next year?
Good question. If you remember from the capital improvement plan, the funding scenarios, if you would go to, if the borough didn't contribute anything, this is how much we currently have in our capital fund to do X, Y, Z. We're pretty well positioned for 2025 to complete the projects for 2025. 2026 is where it gets a little dicey. 2027 and beyond, you wouldn't have enough funding without grant assistance to do those projects.
Without more progress like this,
Yes.
year progress like this. Okay,
Yes.
great to know, thank you.
Yep. So this too is asking for a recommendation from this committee to bring this to council this evening.
Great. Motion from someone?
I motion to recommend budget amendment number 3, updating ENT projections, one-time increase to 2 expense line items, decreasing debt service amounts, transfer to capital fund.
I will second that.
All in favor of that? That passes.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Great, we're on to discussion items. I think a lot of these will just be check-ins, probably. Rules and procedures of council, we're done discussing that.
Yeah, I received kind of just like
Yeah.
the general, like feedback on cleaning up the language, that y'all provided. So I will incorporate, that into a cleaner, more, to a version that reads better and that is cleaner. And then, we can circulate that, with, you know, the rest of council, with the solicitor, with staff. And if there's any further kind of cleanup that needs to occur from there, we can incorporate that.
I know you guys are gonna be really busy, but can we get it on the agenda for next month?
I think so.
Okay. I mean, there should really just be really pretty minor tweaks at this point.
I don't see why not. Do you want to talk about it since there's nothing on this agenda? Maybe put it on the agenda for finance and admin to make that recommendation to council, the final version, and then it goes to council the same night? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, everybody else on council has seen it, I
Yeah.
think, so
Yeah.
Where would
they
the-
should be surprised.
Where would the solicitor review take place? Before it goes to council or?
It should be happening now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, then the next month before it goes, before this meeting next month.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right, boards and commissions review, citizens board application update.
I like it.
Yeah, so we
Yes.
received one from Kelsey, did a nice update on it.
I would say maybe we should just put something on there that says something like, you know, feel free to attach a resume or something.
I think
It does
it is
have
on
that
there.
in there.
It asks about your professional accomplishments. I'll admit I was trying to read this
Yeah,
on the
it's,
train on the way
It's
home
the
today, so
last
it's
thing,
at the very bottom. Okay,
right there,
I missed that.
right underneath the signature.
Ah, see, I got to the signature. I thought that was, as I said, I was reading it on my phone, so I think I didn't keep scrolling.
And I assume that'll be made like, put in the PDF where you can fill it in.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Could I just, I mean, I know this is great, but, and this might be nitpicking, but could it say something like enclose a copy of your resume or relevant employment experience or something like that? And the only reason I ask that is because not everybody has a resume. Not everybody applying even has a professional background. You know, there are a lot of at-home parents who might feel intimidated.
I think that's why we left it optional for the person.
Yeah.
And it says, you are invited to attach additional pages, enclose a copy of your resume, or submit supplemental information which you
Okay.
feel may.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's
I think
good.
the supplemental information
Yeah.
You think that's good?
covers that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
And
there's
that's how I
also
would
the
interpret it
question
if I were-
about what are your professional things, so earlier, you know, what professional experience would you bring to the job, so I think it's covered.
My only minor like nitpicky thing, and it has nothing to do with that, which is just when we add in the thing that allows you to fill it in. I noticed on like on the old one, it doesn't like the paragraph, it doesn't loop the paragraphs. And so it gets difficult to read, so if we just do that, so for the.
Right, because people don't click into the next line when that line is running. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
But there's a way to set
Yeah,
up the
no,
thing that it just
yeah.
does it automatically.
Yeah, I know that. So if you have it, you have to do like just one big text box and then have it like scroll. Yeah. I'll mention something to Kelsey about that. But yeah.
All right, love it. Can we just approve it or what? We don't even need to approve it, do we? It's just a- No,
I don't think-
okay,
I don't think so.
good. Seems good. Let's move on to the two police advisory, we really did, that was, mostly was done in, public health and safety.
Mhm.
Yeah, they seem to be well on their way.
So they actually, PAC already has it.
They do.
To review it. We basically put our version together, begun it to PAC for comment, so
Okay.
it'll come back to us.
Great. And the only one we've really focused on in depth right now is Human Relations Commission.
I still need to talk to Rebecca,
Yeah,
let's just say her resignation sort of, it's like, okay.
she's
but,
still gonna be valuable to talk to.
Oh, no, absolutely. We just haven't had a time, we've had some back and forth about setting up a time between the Jewish holidays and quite frankly, my work stuff going crazy, I haven't had a chance.
And I think ultimately we wanna get to all 12 commissions. I think a lot of them are needed, really, but,
Yeah.
Okay, we'll keep progressing that. Communications plan, website and social media.
Okay, I guess this is on me, so I sent you guys a week and a half ago my sort of preliminary thoughts, just sort of the big picture issues that I see out there, in terms of, just sort of structurally what, the breadth of what the communications plan might entail and what needs to be covered, just make sure that I wasn't forgetting anything. So, sort of broad structure, hoping you two can sort of make sure that that's okay, fill in the bones, and then, or tell me if I'm forgetting anything, and then I'll start filling in the bones. So, and I know you guys just had a chance to look at it this afternoon, so I don't expect you to give me any.
I looked at it a couple of days, when you first sent it as well. I thought it was really good. I think it's good, and this is not like a separate bucket, but it was something that wasn't in there that I thought we might want to incorporate, which is just general expectations for council members who have their own individual communications assets. Just so that, not like dictating how often or anything like that, but just kind of a list of here's, the expectations if how you should kind of comport yourself if you're using your own separate communications aspect.
Or even strangely enough, I got a phone call this morning from a constituent who just happens to know me, right? And she called my office number last night and got my office manager at home. I was like, why are you calling Mr. Sampson about Narber stuff at 6:45 at night in his office? But, so I sort of didn't contemplate that. What do or do we have expectations of engagement in those situations and or obligations to the rest of council to share, right? So she called me with two separate complaints, right? Well, how do I deal with this? I told her one to the chief of police, and the other one I said I would try and figure out who the person is. So, is that the appropriate way of handling it? Do I need to share that with everybody?
Right.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking that's interesting, because I was thinking less about the one-on-one interactions and more if Facebook is the one that comes up, which is just to say the classic example is just clarifying that you're speaking individually rather than on behalf of those types of kind of nuts and bolts.
I sort of alluded to that a little bit. I think I put that in the Facebook. And there is a legal overlay to that. So I may have mentioned this before. The Supreme Court decided last year this case that somebody on a local governmental entity was having a pissing match, for lack of a better word, the constituent on Facebook. And then he blocked the guy, and I think maybe even kicked him off the page or something, and the guy sued and said this is a First Amendment violation. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, because the person said, I was just doing this in my personal capacity, not speaking on behalf of the borough, etc., etc. So, the next day, I put on my own Facebook page, something at the top that said, anything on this Facebook page is, just my personal opinion, even if I'm opining on things related to the borough. But Jim and I have sort of taken the lead in general in responding on some of those community pages.
Yeah, which I appreciate.
And I've been really careful not to say like,
Yeah.
I'm giving an opinion on this, like we've tried to be just factual in
Yeah,
nature.
informational.
Informational
Yeah.
only, which is what I try to capture, and there is this legal backstop to that's not on this general document, but I will absolutely be fleshing that out.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that's helpful, especially because I know that personally, like, I struggled to figure out like what the best way to approach any sort of things, because it's like like I've had like my social media account since I was in high school, right? So it's like it's way too tied into like me being, I largely stopped using those, but then coming into office, I was like, well, what is my relationship with this versus this? So I think if we have something in there, if there's other folks like me who kind of like trying to think through, it just provides a framework to say actually, like, yes, this is, and then here are your kind of considerations.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other part of that is like the thing that we were just engaging on the parks, right? So then somebody sort of, I'm sure they just were tagging us because they know we're in the group. So they tagged me, Jim, and Fred, right? And then I was sort of writing on the side and I just private messaged him. I'm like, you're making all sorts of assumptions about my view on this. Like I have very deliberately not taken a public position at all on this yet. And I don't know, I'm just sort of curious why you're making these assumptions. So then we had this sort of side chat. And then afterwards I was like, I'm not sure I should have done that. Like I'd rather have everything, on the Pace page. On the other hand, if I ran into him on the street, I probably would have had the same conversation.
Right.
So what difference does it make? Right?
Yeah.
If he had seen me on the street, he'd say, hey Mike, what's your view on this? We're not gonna say, I'm not gonna express my view to you.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the additional, I think, concern of typing into a Facebook page, wherever it
Yeah.
is that we don't want to be deliberating. Like I shouldn't
Right.
be telegraphing my
Yeah.
voting position
Yeah.
to you. If we're in the same
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
Outside of outside of a public meeting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
So,
so I didn't
yeah,
mean to like
that should be-
overcomplicate, but just like, it doesn't need to get into the level of specificity that like you're constantly having to refer back to the thing, but just
Yeah.
a high level kind
Yeah.
of like, here's your.
No, I think
guidance.
it's more about sort of things you need to consider,
Yeah.
if you're gonna do this.
So there were a couple, I don't know if this is a separate category or in this list, but I'm interested that we try to find more ways of putting out news, like,
Yep.
like the kind of thing they used to print in a newspaper. And I've noticed on Facebook and also, people who talk about it, they appreciate the videos, but even those are a lot to view, you can't
Nobody's
view
gonna
all the
Yeah,
videos.
nobody's gonna,
And, sometimes people just wanna see the summary.
Well, that's kind of what the minutes are.
Yeah,
You
the
know.
minutes, that's right. But I noticed, Lower Merion School District has this thing called, is it board notes?
board docs.
Board docs. No, wait, no, there's something in addition that
Yeah, no, I know what you're trying to
the
say.
secretary releases
Yeah.
like, this happened at this meeting,
Right.
just
It's a
like,
little bit of a summary.
I don't mean it's like a task for you guys, but maybe it could be,
Or
again,
even if you post the videos, like I think you did this last week where you said, here's the link to the meeting and the things that you're most interested in starts at 24:24. So you don't
Okay.
have to watch the whole
right,
minute.
Right.
There are those occasions, and there's
Mhm.
people on other pages who sometimes unfairly take snippets of a board meeting out of context and put it up for 2 or 3 minutes and say, hey, did you see what happened? There's just this
I'm on
dust up
Facebook.
in the school district, right?
oh, that one, yeah.
So,
that.
people only put in 3 or 4 minutes of that
Sure.
interaction.
Wow.
I then ended up going back to watch a little more because I couldn't even figure out how they got there. So you gotta be careful with
That's
that.
not our topic, let's
Yeah.
not touch it, please.
No, I'm not touching that topic, but you're right that there are ways, the old-fashioned ways of communicating. Are there other ways, you know, besides the weekly newsletter to sort of make it more, like, I think a lot of people, if Ed posts our weekly update on his Norbert page, and then Deb or somebody posted on her Facebook page, you know, I think a lot of people don't sort of click through that, right? They're just like, oh, here's the weekly minutes. If we could either encourage them or ourselves say, you know, new topics in here, and Ed does it occasionally, he say, oh, there's an update here about something.
Right.
Train updates, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. People are more likely then going
Yeah.
to click on it and
Yeah.
open it, rather than just like, oh, another weekly.
Those are good, but they can never be comprehensive, like,
Right.
there might be someone who's interested in something
Yeah.
they'll never hear about because it just hasn't been pointed out to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is really, but maybe that's something we can
Yeah.
look at,
Yeah.
sort of ways
Yeah.
of just being more newsy.
Yeah, and I guess I would like to get some input from other people about, you know, we talk about social media, we're talking primarily about Facebook, I think, just by default, because there are community Facebook pages. But, you know, okay, I'll say it, it's an old people's medium. You know, I don't know that it's worth having Instagram pages and everything else, you know, because the truth of the matter is you're gonna get 10 hits. You know, so that you gotta figure out whether that's worth it or not. Every board I've ever served on is like, oh, we gotta get an Instagram account, we have to have a whatever account, we have to have and they set it all up, and, you know, if you're lucky, you get 10 hits a week, but
Yeah.
well, actually, you're not getting the traffic that makes it worth it, so. Anyway, okay. I will,
Very good.
Yep.
You're gonna be meeting, have you had a meeting with Kelsey yet?
no, cause I wanted to get this
Yeah. Yeah.
this fleshed out before I met with her, so this was.
Could I be included in that?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Remember
Is
me,
there,
don't lose my number.
So I haven't seen this, like, I haven't seen what you're.
Yeah, I will send it to you guys, I
Okay.
wanted to send it to these guys just to make sure that I wasn't forgetting
Okay.
any topics, and I haven't started thinking about
Okay,
input
because there is a
yet.
role for administration to play in this as well.
Yeah, yes.
Kelsey's been actually working on some things,
Okay.
website recommendations as well as social media recommendations, and I
Oh,
just
good.
want to
Okay.
make sure that we are all focused on the same thing.
This is all just a very high level, what issues do we have to,
That's good.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that's
It's
really
a
good.
page, it's an outline of what issues do we have to think about,
That's
not how we're
valuable to
implementing.
hear. I don't want council to get into the weeds of designing a website.
No.
Just want to make sure
You
that
do
we're all on the
Don't
same
have
page.
to worry about that at all.
She's got a really good presentation that she'd like to sit down and
Okay.
meet with you about, and I know we talked to Jim about that. And so it would be helpful to see what your thoughts are at the 5,000 foot view, so I can share them with Kelsey, so she can integrate them into her thought process as well.
I will send it to you right.
That'd be great.
And this may not be worthwhile or not, but have we ever had any sort of like one page, just kind of like summary of resources that acts as like a welcome packet, but like something really basic that,
And I remember when I was here before, I had started working on something like that, and it just, one of those things that gets lost.
yeah,
We do have a new resident welcome packet on the website, but it hasn't been updated in a little while, so.
okay. Cause I mean,
Yeah.
it was just like something
Under
where if we
information.
had one, maybe it wouldn't be that difficult to update it, and then, I guess like, cause we know when a home has been sold, right, you can assume that there's a new resident living
Yeah.
in there. And then maybe if some updated packets could just be printed and given to like landlords, and as folks come in, they can
Yep.
give it to the new
So
tenants.
for a while, the Civic Association was doing that. They were getting a monthly or, every 2 months report of house sales and then delivering a free bag with some stuff in it.
If they're interested in continuing to do that, I mean, then that might be helpful. I don't know what their level of, and I know they just had, was it like picnic? They just had like a
The picnic,
annual meeting?
yeah. The annual meeting's next week.
Oh, that's next week, okay. So I know that like, there's a certain level of activity there, I wasn't sure if they were still doing that, and if they are, then it may not even be something that we need to pick up. It might be just-
It's not something we could count on them always to do, because there are a lot of turnover issues in the Civic Association, and,
Gotcha.
they have bandwidth of their own.
Anyway, I just don't know where any of that stands, I just wanted to,
We do have it on our website. I think it might be a valuable exercise to, when Kelsey has some time, to maybe design a handout. That could be the same version, it's the same thing, and update it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of text. I'm usually text averse.
yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Okay, I just sent it to Matt.
Thanks.
Public comment. This is something I assigned myself to kickstart, but I'm sorry for the late mailing today. But I had previously circulated the Conshohocken public comment guidelines, which I admire a lot in my research. And this one I just went through and I followed their form and their points. And I changed them as I thought appropriate. But so this is only really a draft. Some of this is meant for discussion too. So I think we don't have to get super detailed about this tonight, but feel free to make any comments you want about that. Either if you can see something tonight or in the next month or something, something's missing or something that shouldn't be there. They, like for instance, they limit public comment to residents and or taxpayers, which is something I'm not sure if we do.
Well, so we had this discussion, if you remember back when we were first looking at the rules of council again, because like the predecessor to the public comment stuff was in there, and we decided to unpack it from there. And so I think what we had basically like discussed at that prior meeting, and I may be misremembering, is that it kind of seemed like outdated language, and especially because we have so many NERBs, they're not normally showing up to the meetings en masse, but if someone who lives a block away feels strongly enough to show up and address us, it felt weird to me to be like, oh no, like everyone else can speak, like, we know they don't live in the borough, we know they're not.
You're right,
But
it
like-
shouldn't even be a question, like, yeah, we should allow comments from people
Yeah.
like that.
Think about, if it is a high profile meeting, do we let, and there's dozens of people here, do we let the residents speak first, residents and taxpayers speak first, and then the other folks?
So the thing that we also talked about at the time is like, what does taxpayer, I mean, like, I guess we're not directly taking like sales taxes, right? But like, we have business privilege taxes. So does that anyone that participates in commerce in the borough, like, are they a tax, like, what does that actually mean in practice?
It means non-owner occupied properties, right? So if you own property in the borough, but you don't live there, but you own that, then you have a right to, as owner of property, to comment or.
Yeah, I mean, if you're being
Yeah.
taxed by us, even if you don't live here, I think you have a right to speak, right?
But even aside
You're
from
spending
that,
your tax dollars in some
No.
form.
No, I agree with that, I'm just saying, like, at what point are we just kind of like,
Right.
where it's just like, it's a
Right.
public comment process, like,
yeah,
then we'll go down the line, stand up.
I would say
citizens.
the only flip side to that, and of course, this isn't public comment in person, but we just got this petition for the dog park, for potential dog park,
Mhm.
that got circulated online. And, people from France and Australia and God knows where else.
Yes, they're not normally
Signed it.
zooming into our meetings.
Right, they're not normally zooming into our meetings, but in this day and age, they
They
could,
could, I guess.
right? And
not
so,
a Zoom dog park.
right, or so, I do think that there has to be, we have to think about whether in those circumstances, like, no, we're not gonna.
You have some sort of control for the absurd scenario.
Right, and that's what I was saying, like, if it's a big ticket item, I mean, I don't think that's gonna happen very often, but if it's one of those meetings where this room is packed with 100 people, do we give priority to residents and
Sure,
taxpayers
yeah.
first?
Right,
I don't know,
Sure.
just something to think about,
right.
because that dog park scenario, or the situation where, that we had last month, where we all got bombarded by hundreds, thousands of emails for a situation that didn't even involve the borough,
Right.
was like on the other side of the border, so it's like, you know, can you imagine if we hadn't resolved that before one of these meetings, all those people could have shown up for public comment to talk to us from all over the country or all over the world, and
Yeah, it's
we'd be
great.
like, yeah, you're not even talking to the right entity, so I
Yeah.
don't wanna be able to shut them down.
So I guess, yeah, so we should probably figure out, like in between now and next, we can think about like
Yeah.
what that sort of kind of control loop.
Let's just stop on this topic.
Yeah.
We'll mark it up over the next month, we'll come back to it. And we'll move on to cash funded reserve policy.
Nothing.
Nothing, oh, okay, I was able to talk to that.
Nope, nope. That's something that, you know, now that I'm in budget season, I just don't have the bandwidth
Okay.
to come up and develop that policy. That would be an early 2025
Alright.
goal for this committee to take that action.
All right, good. Review of ongoing projects.
Nothing else?
I don't think there is. Public comments? Public comments, sir?
John Constantine, 400 North Narberth. Really coming for the next meeting, but since
Sure.
you're allowed me 3 minutes, I'll take it.
Sure.
I know last meeting, it seems like you were talking to the public, Police Advisory Committee meeting, and I would strongly urge you to give them as much power as possible to investigate items which come their way. They've asked for it, they've kind of neglected to get into certain issues that they've been shown that are of really real great concern to public safety. I don't know if they acknowledge it to your group, but they have in their possession reports that show that certain officers have conditions, tinnitus, and they're on the beat. They're collecting disability payments elsewhere. So I don't know if you're aware of that. I don't know if it's come your way. But their performance, they've documented that these items affect their ability as a police officer. So I don't know how you can say it to one particular group in a deposition and then claim it doesn't affect you on your duty as a Narberth police officer. You know, that should be reviewed. I know you were talking about protective classes of people in the last meeting, or coming up with that, and veterans being one of them. But you have to look at the citizens' point of viewpoint. You know, if they need to be on desk duty, by all means, give them a job on desk duty, but don't have them out on the street where they can cause issues with the public.
That was probably a different committee, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't
yeah.
sound-
Well, so public health and safety, I don't know if you were here for this part of the meeting, but public health and safety is actually reviewing the police advisory committee's charge. And so that's actually what you just said in terms of what their scope is and everything else is actually actively under review right now.
But not by this committee.
But not by this committee, it's public health, it goes to public health and safety. So the public health and safety is actually just drafted a proposed revised charge to them as to what the scope of their powers are, et cetera, et cetera. The PAC is actually in the PAC's hands right now for their review and comments, so they're gonna come back to public health and safety and say, yes, we want these responsibilities, or we don't want these responsibilities, whatever it is. So you actually showed up at a perfect time because we're actually in the midst of that examination, in fact.
But do you want your officers to have PTSD, anxiety?
No,
and
so,
alcohol?
so the question I think is, do we wanna give the PAC the power to do the investigation? Was what you initially said. We're trying to figure that out right now. That's the first question before you get to your ultimate issue, right? Is who gets to evaluate that, who gets to decide that? It might be civil service, which I used to be on. Because civil service has some authority under the borough code for some of this
Do
stuff
they have the
too.
ability to review body camera footage? Things like that.
Yeah,
You know,
That's a
yeah,
good question.
I don't remember under the civil service code. I know the civil service folks
We've only
have the
recently
power
done
to
that.
discipline, but I don't think they have the power to review. I think that has to go through the employment channels.
Okay, so good comments, good questions, not necessarily relevant to this committee, but public health and safety, is reviewing that charge. And that's probably a better place.
Parks, I mean, you know the population of this town.
Yeah,
Do I know you?
4,500 people.
Right, about 20% are 18 and under. They need park space. Okay, Narberth Park is not able to accommodate all of the sports activities that are going on. We don't even have field hockey or volleyball, or the tennis courts were taken away. Sabine Park used to be a bigger park. That parking lot was a field. In 1977, I played soccer on that field. Little League soccer that plays on Sundays could be played up there, while other sports activities could be taken here.
Gotcha, you know what, it's just the wrong committee for those,
But from a finance perspective, you need to prioritize the parks.
okay. Thanks, thank you for your comments.
We're here for the 7 o'clock meeting?
This is the previous meeting, so.
So we're about to adjourn.
We're about to be done. Now, that's a good stay.
Someone did log on the line.
Anybody on the line for public
Is
comment?
there anyone on there now or no?
Anybody attending this meeting online who would like to make public comment for finance and administration? Go ahead and just talk. Looks like maybe not.
Okay.
Okay, let's close public comment. And can I take a motion for adjournment?
I'll second.
All in favor of adjournment? Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.
48.
6:48.